Kathy, if somebody were to give you a coho or Chinook salmon, how would you cook it?
Very carefully.
Well, probably a lot of people have that same attitude. That's why we put salmon recipes in our recipe booklets, and our Michigan Weekend Fall recipe booklet has a really terrific one. It's called Sherry Baked Salmon Steaks. Here's all you need. You need a casserole dish, some, run-of-the-mill utensils, paper towels, some salt, and, of course, pepper, along with just a little bit of dill weed. This is dried dill weed and some vegetable oil. And we'll go to the refrigerator here. By the way, we're cooking in our new Michigan Weekend mobile field headquarters camper. And we have in here some vegetables and some sour cream, some Michigan wine, and of course our salmon. These are from a Chinook salmon, which Gary Marshall caught, about a 20-pounder. Lopped off several steaks, about 1.5 to 2 inches thick. Now, in order to prepare this sherry-baked salmon steaks, what you need to do is make some breading. Of course, out of flour, salt, and pepper, just a standard flour and spice mixture to dip the steaks into. First thing we're going to do after dipping them is brown them in the casserole dish in some butter. So you want to get the old stove fired up and maybe melt a couple tablespoons of butter. So we can, and also add a couple tablespoons of shortening, could be vegetable oil or shortening.
How thick are those steaks?
Well, these steaks are about 1.5 inches thick. I was sort of worried that maybe they were too thick, but fish, oftentimes when it's cut very thin steaks and thin fillets get overcooked. So it really doesn't hurt to have thicker steaks at all. They just fit in this casserole dish. This would be a good recipe for, probably 3, maybe 4 people if you have a lot of vegetables to go with it.
Now you're just browning it on top of the stove?
Brown it on both sides. You do it over, fairly hot heat. You want to brown them quickly on each side.
And then you can bake it in the same dish?
Bake it in the same dish in the oven at, we're going to preheat the oven here to, about 400 degrees. Now there they are. Look at that. That almost looks good enough to eat right there.
Probably is. Uh-oh, here comes the heavy hand.
Here comes the heavy hand with the wine. Now this is supposed to be, I'd say about a 1/4 cup of dry sherry. Probably got a little heavy-handed on it, but it really doesn't hurt. Cover the dish, put it in the oven, 400 degrees for about 10 minutes. Actually, you're going to want to be fairly exact on this because, as I said, most people overcook fish. Probably one thing that makes it taste less than par more than any other reason.
Now what's that handy-dandy little gadget there?
Okay, well, that's just a scraper I used to pick up the chopped onions and chopped green pepper. It's supposed to have about 2 tablespoons of each, according to the official recipe. I like chip dip. I like onions in it and green peppers, so I added a few more than just the 2 tablespoons, and also a 1/2 teaspoon of dried dill weed. Mix those together, and actually that makes a good chip dip right there. What you do is you'll put this on top of the salmon steaks, spread it around, and then you're going to, maybe you'll want to salt it a little bit, depends on your taste, but pop it back in the oven.
And remove the cover.
Right, uncovered in the oven. After 15 minutes of cooking at 400 degrees, uncovered, you'll take it out of the oven. And it should be just cooked to perfection. It really doesn't look too much different, except it's bubbling down in the bottom of the pan. The topping doesn't look too much different, but boy, it's tasty.
And of course it's done when it flakes with a fork.
Sure, flake it with a fork just like that. You'll notice when you eat it.
Now, Fred, are you grimacing because you put that in your mouth because it was too hot?
No way.
Directly from the oven.
It is. It really astounded me. I had this recipe a year or so ago, and I remembered it was good. But this was a fresh lake Chinook. This wasn't one that had gone up in the streams. It's a fresh lake Chinook. boy, was it terrific. You do have to watch for bones in salmon steaks. And anytime you steak a fish, you're going to have the rib bones. But you take Michigan salmon, boy, you know, they're big, and they're going to have big bones, so that's not going to be too much of a problem. And look at the way that flakes with a fork. Boy, that's good. Now you can pick up this recipe, by the way, in the Fall Recipes for Michigan Weekend booklet, which is at any Meyer Thrifty Acre Sporting Goods department, and also it's in the November issue of Michigan Out of Doors. So join me, if you can't join me here in the camper, Michigan Weekend Mobile Field Headquarters, pick up a recipe booklet or pick up Michigan Out of Doors. And it's really great. Sherry baked salmon steaks. You've had it, Kathy.
Yes, it was delicious, but I might recommend to the people that they follow the directions and not put more onions and green pepper.
Oh, I don't know. I like a few
Or
more
wine.
myself. Or wine, maybe. Okay, but if you want some other great recipes, the Wildlife Chef put up by Michigan United Conservation Clubs has just tons of great fish and game recipes. You're going to want to get a copy. Here's how.